Godzilla's popularity is heavily focused on his battles with other kaiju, yet when I look back through the catalog of films, some of my favorite ones are solo Godzilla movies, or films where he fights mankind and not another monster. 1954's Gojira, 1984's Return of Godzilla, and 2016's Shin Godzilla all started off their respective eras with Godzilla facing off with the might of Japan's military. So why didn't the Millennium Era launch with a solo outing for Godzilla? Well, it almost did early on in development. So what caused the switch to adding another kaiju, and what impact did this have on the rest of the Millennium Era? Godzilla 2000 is the first entry in the Millennium Era. Directed by Takao Okawara, it introduces us to Orga, the alien kaiju, an outcome of blending Godzilla's Organizer G1 with the Millennium. But this was not the director's initial concept for the film. Mr. Okawara mentions his own idea before the scriptwriters were brought in to handle the writing duties in an interview that would appear in issue 195 of Fangoria magazine. Originally, I wanted the film to feature no enemy kaiju, just Godzilla, with its existence, its connection to the world, and its fight against mankind, the movie's theme. But he chose to go in another direction after having difficulties in fleshing out a story from what he called a vague premise. I would love to know how Mr. Okawara would have expanded on Godzilla's connection to the world. In the Monsterverse, we get to see how Godzilla is part of the ecosystem and how radiation plays its role in the environment. In contrast, the Toho Godzillas were originally part of nature and then they were corrupted or changed by our usage of weaponized radiation, so they lashed out against us. This would likely be the route that a solo 2000s Godzilla would have taken. Godzilla 2000 did feature some nice military interactions, but with no other kaiju in the mix, this could have been an opportunity to finally unload on Godzilla outside of Mechagodzilla with modern weapons. And with the premise mentioning Godzilla's connection to the world, it's an opportunity to show other nations in their fight against Godzilla, something we rarely see. And where does he go outside of the area around Japan? Toho's Godzillas rarely stray too far, so this could be interesting to see. Just imagine the world's militaries using every resource to try to stop Godzilla. Conventional and nuclear weapons are all useless against him. In the end, they would eventually come up with some way to stop or even kill the king of the monsters. Hopefully they'd come up with a method as inventive as the oxygen destroyer, the volcano, or the blood coagulator for the Millennium Era. With that said, Mr. Okawara's early idea of Godzilla vs. Japan is still here in Godzilla 2000, the alien just interferes. In many of the other Versus films, Godzilla is indifferent to the people or outright protecting them and/or the planet. But here, he's after mankind, only averting his attention to the more dangerous target when needed. Before Orga's appearance, we see Godzilla rampaging through a city and taking out an electricity plant. He then moves on towards a nuclear facility, seemingly going after all of our energy sources. This iteration of the Big G is only 55 meters tall, but he looks enormous against the skyline. And the fiery red glow gives off an ominous feeling of dread, similar to the setting from Return of Godzilla, where an atmospheric nuclear blast creates a radioactive electrical storm. Orga to Godzilla was just an obstacle. Once it was defeated, he returned to the task at hand by destroying the city around him, igniting it in flames. One could imagine that a solo take on 2000 would just remove the alien and add in military confrontations along with a way to stop Godzilla by the end. Now, Gojira and Return of Godzilla set up numerous sequels. Is it possible that a solo Godzilla 2000 film could have set up the same kind of continuity? Maybe so, if it performed better than 2000 did. Later in the era, the Kiryu saga was tied together, but I can't help but wonder if people would have liked the era as a whole a bit more if more of it was in the same universe. I also think a darker, more adult, and realistically grounded film would have been a better response to TriStar's Godzilla. For the most part, Americans outside of the fandom saw the later Showa films and the Heisei films to a lesser amount as cheesy monster fights, but all of the solo films seem to be taken a bit more seriously and have larger budgets. What are your thoughts on a Millennium Godzilla facing off with mankind? Do you like the solo films like I do, or is it all about the kaiju fights? Let's discuss down in the comments. And as always guys, your likes, shares, comments, and subscriptions go a long way towards helping the channel grow. Take care, and I hope to see you next time.